Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch is brought to you by Nedbank.
It's 2 p.m. Central African time. A good afternoon to you and welcome to Nedbank Business Watch, where we rather dissect the pulse of Eswatini's economy, bringing clarity to the stories shaping our business landscape here in Eswatini. And today, we begin with a pivotal announcement from the Minister of Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, who shared government's intent to foster exponential economic growth through a strategic partnership with the private sector. Very important. Now, this was revealed during the International Finance Corporation's Private Sector Day, which is currently ongoing at the Happy Valley in Eswatini. Next, the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency has a fresh mandate under its newly announced board. Exciting news. Addressing long-standing procurement delays, the Minister for Finance reaffirmed government's commitment to legislative reforms aimed at streamlining this crucial sector. On this note of vigilance, we turn to the pressing issue of fraud. As November's International Fraud Awareness Month draws to a close, about to close its curtains, we are reminded that the battle against scammers requires year-round vigilance. Nedbank's Forensic Risk Manager, Siphalele Makakula Shabangu, is going to join us today to unpack the robust security features of Nedbank Money app, as well as share some tips to safeguard your finances this coming festive season. Later, we're going to explore the tariff hike. It is an ongoing debate with economist Sanele Sbia, who's going to share his expert knowledge and analysis on a discussion echoing the frustrations of business across Eswatini. And to close, Treasury dealer Nozibusiso Dembe will unravel today's market trends. It's a packed agenda here on Business Watch today, a reflection of an economy in flux but full of possibility. Let's dive in by starting the show with our business news today.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while Human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Making our first story on our business news, government is working on a growth strategy process where private sector companies will be engaged with an intention to fully understand their ambitions as well as how collaboration can be fostered to create an environment that will ensure exponential growth of the economy. This has been said by the Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Reichenberg, during the International Finance Corporation. It is a private sector day, and it is hosted at Happy Valley in collaboration with Business Eswatini. The IFC is a private sector arm of the World Bank Group. Let's take a listen.
The theme of today's event, inclusive growth, enabling sustainable private sector growth in Eswatini. This theme is one that speaks directly to the heart of IFC, to the mission of IFC. It reflects our commitment to fostering economic development that benefits all segments of society and create lasting, inclusive prosperity.
The Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Rickenback, explains what the country is doing to foster collaboration with the private sector for economic growth.
Government's available. In fact, government will be going through a process, a growth strategy process to actually engage once again with the private sector very directly to find out what are the ambitions in the private sector, what are the dreams that the companies are having, how can government support that, what can government do together to be able to work with the entities to get that right. Again, this is where the World Bank can come in very strategically.
World Bank's resident representative shares some of the projects they are doing locally to help support small and medium enterprises as well as government and the private sector.
The first being ecotourism, the second agriculture and agribusiness, the third the digital economy, and of course the last one is energy. But just to focus on the one where we're currently doing some work now, which is on the agriculture sector. We are working with the Minister of Agriculture together with eWade, and the goal there is to basically build out already tested models that eWade has already worked on creating these farmer companies, especially in the Lubombo, Eswatini area, right, to basically help young Eswatini who are vulnerable to be able to have something that they're doing.
The International Finance Corporation has promised to fund viable projects in the country. For Nedbank Business Watch, Nelson Dlangamandla, Vuminkosi Nzinisa, Ezulwini.
A strict mandate has been given to the new board of the Eswatini Public Procurement Regulatory Agency, ESPRA. This is going to address procurement challenges, including delays. And speaking whilst announcing the 5-member board at the agency's office in Babane, the Minister for Finance, Honorable Neil Rickenback, says government is playing her part in reviewing legislation.
The new board chairman is Mr. Sabela Lameni, on my left-hand side here. Otherwise, the board members, the new board members, are Mr. Wellington Motsa, Mrs. Nagagelo Kinenza, and then we also have an old board member who has been here on the previous board, who continues in the new board, Mr. Albert Mhlanga from the previous board. Obviously, on the board, we also have the CEO, Mr. Vusi Matsebula, who will also continue as the CEO and also be on the board to make sure that the board functions properly. So we have SPPRA that is responsible for the procurement in the country, just to make sure procurement is, now this is procurement for SOEs, so for our parastatals as well as for government. They really make sure that procurement is followed properly, is to make sure that there were proper tender processes that were followed, is to make sure that the pricing that is being paid for is to try and make sure there isn't any corruption that takes place, and to really try and make sure that the prices that government pays for goods and services is priced correctly. And so as an entity, that's what they need to do. Obviously then as a board looking after the entity, they need to make sure not only are those functions happening properly, but also in the entity itself, corporate governance is followed properly, and that the entity itself remains healthy from their financials, their recruitments, and all the legalities that take place within the entity the board remains responsible for. And so for that reason, the board has got a big job in their hands. In the next 3 years, there is probably going to be changes to the procurement legislation. At the same time, we'll probably be bringing in e-procurement. So the new board of SPPRA will have their hands full, and they're going to have to assist us in all of these functions.
That marks the end of our business news today. We'll go for that break. We speak on Fraud Awareness Month as we close the curtains after the break.
Hi, I'm Golda. I work here at the IMF. Our aim is to provide the best possible advice on economic policy to our member countries, helping them to create conditions so everyone prospers from economic growth. One question our economists are always getting: how can we reduce poverty and foster inclusive growth? There are a few ways to think about it. Some say the government should be heavily involved in the economy, with regulations to keep people safe and high taxes that fund and support a healthy, well-educated and inclusive society, even if it's at the expense of higher growth. Others believe that the government should have little or no part to play in the economy. Lower taxation means more money in everyone's pockets. More individual freedom, they say, means more economic growth overall. But maybe there's a target we all could be shooting for: the best policies on inclusion and growth. Essentially, inclusive growth is about making the economic pie bigger and sharing those slices more widely. So, how do we get there? By aiming for a middle ground. Both sides mostly recognize the need for social safety nets, public pensions, unemployment insurance, food programs. These measures prevent extreme poverty and provide a basic standard of living. At the IMF, inclusive growth is central to our work because reducing poverty is in everyone's interest. Part of having a free and equitable society is ensuring we all benefit from its growth, no matter who we are. And it's not just about creating a fair and equal chance to succeed for individuals, regions, or countries. It's about distributing growth fairly for future generations too. Overall, inclusive growth is based on the idea that wealth creation, economic freedom, and equal opportunity can and should coexist.
Sit down with Nedbank now. Welcome back to the program. You're still watching Nedbank Business Watch. It is Wednesday, and as November draws to a close, marking, of course, the end of International Fraud Awareness Month, it's very crucial to emphasize that the fight against fraud doesn't pause with the calendar, but rather scammers remain relentless, preying on unsuspecting individuals daily, really every day. And we're now entering the peak season, which is, of course, the festive season. Black Friday is here, just a day away, and it is a time when transactions hit their highest and vulnerabilities often surface. But today, Nedbank is here to empower us to, most importantly, show how the same technology exploited by fraudsters can be used to defend ourselves and protect our finances. Si Palele Makakula Shabang, Nedbank's forensic risk manager, is here. She's in studio, going to guide us through the security features of the Nedbank app and how they can help safeguard you this festive season. An important conversation as I welcome you to the program, Spalele. A very good afternoon to you. Hoping that on your way here, the weather hasn't turned treacherous as they promised.
No, not yet.
Okay, good enough.
Thank you.
Let's get into this conversation that has become treacherous to a lot of people, so to speak. You know, what are some of the security tips that you can share with the public that could be helpful during this festive season?
Thank you so much. So I think what is important, should we rather go back to the app?
Okay.
To say that this app has security features that will help us in terms of protecting us, using the same technology that were exploited in to protect us. So as an Nedbank client, there's 3 key features that you should know about.
Okay.
That is freezing your card, blocking or cancelling your card, and then reporting of fraudulent transactions. Okay. Now, the reason you need to know these features is that in an event you suspect that there's fraudulent transactions happening into your account, you can then just block your card at the tip of your hand. You don't need to call the branch to report it. You can just report it on your app. That means in seconds you can be reporting.
So 3 features: freezing, cancelling and blocking.
Yes.
What's the third one again?
Reporting of fraud.
Yes. What does freezing look like? Is that like a temporal solution to see whether you can still reclaim it?
Yes. For instance, let's say you can't find your card right now. So the best thing to do, rather freeze it, just in case someone took it.
So they can't tap, they can't
do
swipe?
anything, and nothing. It's basically disabled. No functionality can happen with that card. So you're freezing it. Yes.
And I suppose upon the realization that you have indeed lost it, that is when you can cancel or block it
Certainly.
and then get a new one.
Yes, and you actually even reorder a new one in the app.
And I suppose that should be a fast or rather convenient way
Certainly.
from net banking being sorted out, I believe.
Certainly.
Okay. Let's speak on, some of the other features that are key, which people are not most aware of.
Thank you. Now, this is the profile management. I think most people tend to pay attention to the reporting of the fraud functionality. Now, there's this key one, profile management. For profile management, there's this feature that speaks to one adjusting limits. That's the limits. We know that you can adjust your ATM limit, increase, what you pause transactions, you can increase, decrease them, what you can transfer, increase, decrease. That is fine, that is normal. But there's a key feature in that application. Now, that is your alert maintenance. Basically, you're telling the application that any activity that happens in my application, this is the phone number that I need to be alerted on.
Okay.
So if there's any activity in your profile, there's a password being reset, there's a phone number that you say should be notified.
Okay.
There's an app, the same app with your profile being loaded on another gadget. This is the notification that should come through. So this is the best way that you can basically detect when, let's say you've been compromised in other platforms. Now someone else tries to exploit you by now downloading the app in another gadget. So this is the best way that you can know what is happening. You can actually even prevent it. Now this is saying detecting when someone is attempting to reset your password. Then you can stop that from happening. So the whole process won't continue.
Right.
Exactly.
So it sort of works like some sort of a two-factor authentication.
Yes, it is. But then it won't work if you haven't selected the alert notification.
So you have to activate it.
You have to activate it.
Upon your discretion to do that.
Yes.
Very important. So I'm imagining what that looks like. Does it also... so let's say I'm the scammer. I've stolen your device and I'm attempting to log into your profile. Does that alert come in at my first attempt, or I have to attempt a couple of times?
No, it'll come in at the first attempt.
Oh, great.
Yes,
Okay.
come in at the first attempt.
Very important.
Very.
That is okay. We've spoken on the security measures that you have shared with, of course, the public that they can be aware of going into the festive season. With the credit card, understanding that you can disable e-commerce and enable it only when making purchases, what does that look like?
We advise you to say, credit card transactions isn't something that you do every day. It's not like, withdrawals. You rarely make credit card purchases.
Right.
So rather than having that functionality enabled, disable it and only enable it when you're making your purchases. This is to say, how parents most often give their children cell phones. And at the time when that gadget is with your child, that's a point when your gadget can be vulnerable in the sense that
Absolutely.
the settings can fall off in terms of your security features relating to your gadget itself.
Yeah.
Kids can allow certain pop-ups, so you can be compromised at that level. So if you disable that functionality and only enable it when you're purchasing, that's a form of security for yourself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's delve into more security tips that our viewers can be aware of going into this important season.
Thank you. Cardinal rule. As you have a bank account, you have an app, you have a card. Make sure you know your reporting channels.
Okay.
You know where to report in your application, the actual app. Know the phone number you should call in the event there's a situation. Now, in the event you're mugged and that phone is taken from you, have a way, of how you should report. Don't have all the information on that phone such that you don't have a fallback plan in terms of reporting. All ATMs have that phone number where you can report fraud. So understand and know that in the event there's an ATM close by, you can rush to that ATM. So understand that reporting channels should always be at the back of your head. Know the phone numbers, know the email addresses where you have to report. Then secondly, most banks have the tap and pay functionality. Have that disabled. Don't enable that, especially when you're traveling, outside the country or when you're having fun at night. Remember, when we're happy at night, we tend to have our guard down, and we can be exploited.
Yeah.
You know, someone can literally take your card and just keep on tapping. Even when those notifications come through, you won't pay attention because you're really happy.
Yeah.
So when you cross the border, you can get mugged, and someone can tap away. They can even mug your phone, mug you on your phone, mug your phone as well, so you can't even report, you know, instantly. So rather have that functionality disabled and enable it in rather safe environment where you're in control.
It's very interesting because I've second-hand experience with not disabling the tap and pay functionality, and you know, and I suppose it was a learning moment, a teachable moment for a friend of mine who then realized perhaps it's time to shift to NetBank because then I can enjoy such functionalities.
Certainly.
Yeah. Let's talk about Lord itinerary dates on the app for travel.
Great. So in terms of, you know, to protect our clients, our cards are not enabled to transact in certain jurisdictions.
Yeah.
So if you are to travel, you have to then load your itinerary. There's certain dates where you load your itinerary, where you're traveling to, and the dates that you'll be traveling. Then that will get activated for you to be able to transact in those jurisdictions. Now, what is important is that in case you come back before the dates that you're supposed to come back, notify us so that we disable, you know, those functionalities outside those jurisdiction. You understand that most of the time you'll be transacting, swiping, and your card information will be out there.
Yeah.
So rather than leaving that information out there and having unauthorized transactions, rather, if you come back before, notify us, then we disable. It's a form of control. It's there to protect our clients.
Yeah.
So if you travel, load your itinerary, and don't travel and believe that, no, your card will be able to transact. The reason the cards are closed are to protect us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very important. We are entering the festive season, but most importantly, just a day from now is going to be Black Friday. I was actually mind-boggled going through my X page, and scammers are getting smarter by the day. I saw a Sony website where a lot of men buy their consoles from. Particularly during Black Friday, they get 30%, 40% discounts. And I saw a 60% one. It looks too good to be true, but the website looks exactly, and even the website at the top looks like the original Sony website.
Yes.
And someone made the purchase and they're regretting it because over 7,000 malangeni or rands that they have lost from that. So talk to us about being cautious online, phishing attempts. We've had some conversations around this.
This is crazy because, like you say, right now is the right time for scammers to send out these crazy messages, these links to make attempts, in terms of phishing. Right now, some of us are forwarding messages to say you're going to win. Click this link, the winnings, there's this competition, there's discounts. We are forwarding those messages because those messages don't come from the air. Now remember, when you forward that message, you are actually being an accessory to this kind of crime. Yeah. So do not forward anything and do not click any links that are unsolicited. And even if now you do land on that Sony page that you often, access, make sure that the page is authentic. They're spoofed sites.
Right.
So if you go online and you search how to search for Sony authentic sites, they're going to give you tips. Any website will give you tips on how to search for their authentic site to prevent spoofed sites.
Okay.
Most importantly, if you are crossing the border, make sure that your phone is on roaming so that you're going to be receiving those notifications when those transactions come through. It's sad when Eswatini comes back home. Imagine at the border, now you're getting all those notifications.
I can imagine that.
If you are changing your phone number, first act is that you go to your bank and notify your bank that you're changing your phone number. Don't put it off and say, no, I'll notify them soon. That's very important.
All right, let's talk about contact information for NetBank.
Our phone number, 3278 1999.
Right.
Then our email address is helpdesk@netbank.co.za.
Fraud Awareness Month closes its curtains this very week. Should be 4 days now, I believe. Should be December very soon. And you should be vigilant. You have heard it from Palele Shabangu as to what you need to do to be vigilant and stay cautious. Let's go for a break. An interesting topic after the break, tariff hikes with Sonny Lesbia.
When you choose your adventures, you do so with an open heart and a desire for the unexpected. You embark on journeys to discover new worlds full of wonder. You choose a path to awaken your senses, a world to make you look up and realize just how inspiring this life can be. Arrive and awaken your heart. Explore life in ways only thought possible in your dreams. Discover just how far you go to expand your understanding of life's greatest mysteries. There's just one place on this planet with so much to offer. Now is the time for you to have the royal experience in the kingdom.
On our Enterprise Watch segment today, panelists have shared different initiatives which they believe can stimulate economic growth, especially through collaboration between government and the private sector companies in Eswatini during the International Finance Corporation Private Sector Day at Happy Valley, Ezulwini. Now, these include Chief Executive Officer of MTN, Eswatini, Wandile Mjali, as well as Andrea Mendes, the Financial Director at Ubombo Sugar.
Eswatini, we're sitting at over almost 98% for broadband connectivity in Eswatini. Compare that with across the African continent, you realize that we're really one of the highest when it comes to broadband connectivity, which means Eswatini have access to broadband today. The question then becomes, then what do we do? Number one, digital transformation is very, very key. We need to be able to then transform and tap into that connectivity that we already exist, and then look at how we then transform our businesses, transform government, transform civic groups, so that we can then be able to digitize the journeys that we have within our spheres. So again, for me, this is really where it should start off from. When you look at what we have done today, EPTC is rolling out fiber to the home, rolling out fiber to the businesses, and rolling out fiber across our country, which is again a milestone that we need to be able to celebrate, that we are now, tapping into something where the first world is. Across our kingdom, we've got the 4G or LTE coverage in each and every area of this country. I always meet people and they ask me, when does 5G come through? And, some of us, we obviously in business, we look at what are the business cases that we need to have in place for that 5G can come through. And we are working on that. And I believe within the next year or two, you will start to see more rollout of 5G across in our kingdom. Like a session like this, where we now interact with, IFCs and financiers in the kingdom, we are saying we want to tap into that and make sure that we can then be able to fast track connectivity with regards to 5G, and again enhance the fiber connectivity that we need so much in our kingdom. So that is something that we're working on. And I think, again, it's not a challenge. It is for us to look at what are the opportunities, what are the business needs that we have across Eswatini, and then we can then be able to invest in that. Because I strongly believe that the solutions are there. We just need to then make sure that we align the solutions to what are the needs of Eswatini. both from business perspective and from an individual space. So I think that is we're on the right track in that sense. And again, issues around making sure that Eswatini are educated, well educated around the need for digital transformation, the need for them to be able to tap into all the digital solutions that are available. It's again very, very important. So whilst we invest in infrastructure, we need also to invest in skilling Eswatini to make sure that they can take in and to tap into the digital transformation journey that we are so much want to see across. You know, today a government has the digital strategy that they've rolled out. So it is very clear and they've got specific timelines on how to get there. All we need to do is to work together, private sector and government, so that we can then be able to make sure that we achieve the objectives of the digital strategy that we have across. And I'm sure each and every organization that is here, they are looking forward to digitizing and transforming their journeys, transforming their systems so that we bring in a bit of efficiencies, but also you then tap into the international connectivity that we so much desire as well, so that we can then be able to sit in Eswatini and work through with some of the international connectivity and some of the international bodies that are out there. I think the areas that are still slightly and moving a bit slower is around, cloudification of systems, data centers. We are not there yet, and I think certainly, I'm sure all of you are already thinking about what's happening around some of the data centers that we have in the kingdom. We need to invest in that, and I'm sure some of the finances that we have, we can tap into, can help us to make sure that we drive that journey around making sure that there is better data centers in the country, data centers that will help us as a Eswatini to connect into it, so that you as a business, you do not need to invest in any infrastructure around your servers, your data center, your cloud. This must be available in the country. All you need to do is to then look at what are the services that you need, and then we can be able to roll out all those services. I believe that is again an area that we are looking into from a private sector perspective, but I also think certainly government will help us to get there, because a lot of the digital transformation needs to happen also in the government sector, because it will then bring in the efficiencies that we so much need, but also help with the Eswatini can be able to tap into some of the services, government services, from wherever they are in the Kingdom of Eswatini.
That's the Chief Executive Officer of MTN Eswatini, Wandile Mjali. He speaks on what role the private sector is expected to play, really, in recovering the economy of Eswatini, or rather bolstering the economy of Eswatini. In studio, I have Nelson Ndlangamandla, who has been following the proceedings there to the IFC Private Sector Day really, really closely. Nelly, welcome to the program. Good afternoon to you. I think it was post-COVID-19, our recovery strategy pronounced by Minister Mangoba Khumalo, who spoke about a private sector-led economy. And I'm happy Mr. Mjali also speaks on the fact that government has to play an important role there towards making sure that the environment is conducive for them as the private sector. Speak to me about, some of the takeaways that you've taken from Wandile as well as the other speakers at the forum.
Thank you so much, Fiso, and good afternoon to the viewer at home. One of the most important thing about this private sector day by the International Finance Corporation is that it fits into the program of action by the Prime Minister, the Ngwe program of action, right, where the Prime Minister said the aim is to achieve 12% annual GDP growth rate by the year 2028. Yeah. So basically they are saying, how can government and the private sector collaborate in order to achieve this, in order to grow the economy? They are looking for ways to work together. The Minister of Finance has said that the ministry is reviewing some of its legislation to ensure that it works well with the private sector. So basically what the CEO from MTN Eswatini is saying is they have played their part. We know that connectivity is the cornerstone of enabling a good business environment, so to say. So he's saying they are doing their best. They are trying to ensure that the country is connected in order to ensure that business people are able to connect, even internationally. So another thing that was talked about in this in this meeting was the issue of the challenges in agriculture. We know that Eswatini, in Eswatini, most people are involved in agriculture. There is a lot of commercial farming. We have the sugar industry, which is very big in Eswatini, which is responsible for the largest exports in the country. So Andrea Mendes from Ubombo Sugar shared some insights, shared some challenges on the, like she shared the challenges that they are facing and how those challenges can be overcome. Okay. We had we took that discussion from the panel.
Yeah. We are going to listen to Andrea Mendes as Nelly highlights that she also spoke on behalf of Ubombo Sugar, such an important contributor to the economic growth of Eswatini. But on the Wandile Njali pronouncements there, some of his submissions do speak on the connectivity that you highlight, Nelly. I wonder if perhaps we got the full submission by him there. Anything about the cost of data that should be amongst some of the leading conversations there? It's very perennial in Eswatini.
Yeah, well, yeah, he touched on that a bit. I think to say MTN is really doing something. They have reduced the cost of data. There has been promotions where they are reducing the cost of data. We should be careful, Sfiso, not to advertise them, but they are doing something about that.
Absolutely. Okay, good enough. Let's listen to Andrea from Ubombo Sugar.
We've also seen disruption in the supply value chain, being caused by the emerging geopolitical wars and the riots that keep coming up now and again, which we generally don't plan for. A good example is what's happening currently in Mozambique. At least in the sugar sector, it's really impacting us because now we have to find alternative means to transport sugar to our export markets in the meantime, hoping that that gets resolved soon. However, we do believe that the cornerstone of a lot of issues that are culminating today stem from climate change. And why do I say that? I saw a few farmers in the room. They'll keep me honest to my stats. But we've seen a very significant decline in yields. I can speak to sugar again. My apologies, I'm an expert in that field. But I'm sure it's the same in the legumes, grains, industries. But we've seen yields declining by about 21 tons of cane per hectare in just the past 5 years. And that's significant. We've seen an emergence of pests and diseases, some that we don't know of. I can give an example of just last year, there was a pest that came out of nowhere called a green leaf hopper. Farmers have had to deal with that. They've never dealt with it before. We're seeing pests prevalent in seasons where we generally would not see them. Suddenly, they're able to resist winter season, and that's because it's generally now warmer in winter. But we're also seeing the issue around sustainability standards, which are very key these days. And farmers are practically at the mercy of customers because customers are now cautious about what they consume. They want to understand how the activities impact the environment. And in essence, that also impacts their consumption. Now, there are various means in which I can mention that the sector is trying to deal with these challenges. Again, I'll speak mainly to the sugar industry, but I believe the same mechanisms are being used throughout the agricultural sector. So one is crop insurance. Fortunately, I had a good conversation with the insurance expert in the house, and he did mention that he's seen an uptick in that ever since we've had the issues around climate change. That unfortunately comes with a premium. Another solution is around an investment in technology to save water. Water is slowly becoming scarce. I'm sure we've noticed that where we tend to believe it's going to rain, it's no longer raining. Like right now, it's the rainy season, but instead of rain, we're just getting a few storms there and there. Storms are not good because they also damage crops. And we kind of trying to move to other alternatives of energy because energy is a very key resource. Both energy and water are a key resource in the farming business. And the alternatives such as solar also come at a cost, a heavy cost. So all these mechanisms that we can use to address the challenges unfortunately come with a high investment cost, both because they're quite capital intensive and generally they significantly high. So how can the private sector assist with some of these challenges? We believe the main issue is around funding, access to funding. Organizations like IFC could assist with that by maybe lobbying for better collateral requirements, better rates. I am not a banker. I don't know what solutions they can come up with, but I'm sitting next to an expert, and I'm sure she's taking notes. But it is quite expensive, and farmers are then reluctant to, for example, go into solar as an example because it's quite expensive, and they don't really have the access to the funding, especially your smallholder farmers. They also aren't able to deal with the challenges centered around climate change, that is exploring other crop varieties, because it also comes with a cost, right? So I'm sure the bankers and institutions like the IFC can come up with some good, nice solutions that are tailor-made for that sector. Another one is around sustainability. I can share that at least in the sugar industry as an example. I'm sure the other industries are doing the same. They're exploring ways to deal with sustainability now than later, because I know we have your 2030 vision, 2050, where we're supposed to reduce our carbon footprint as much as possible. There's a requirement in terms of skills, just upskilling farmers with the requirements around sustainability. I can share that in the sugar industry, we have a technical committee which sits with farmers just to teach them what is required with regard to the sustainability requirements. And we're also trying to get accreditation sooner than later.
All right, this is still the IFC ongoing conversation happening at the Happy Valley, and that was the forum discussion. They're highlighting some of the opportunities and challenges that the private sector needs to unlock the private sector growth in Eswatini. That was Andrea from Ubombo Sugar. She speaks nearly candidly about the biggest challenge being access to funding. She highlights the many problems that confront the farming sector right now in Eswatini. But what is essential is that they don't necessarily have the instruments that allow them really to get the access to funding that they need to confront these issues. Speak to me about, what then government has proposed to do. We have heard that, you have highlighted that Minister of Finance is also there proposing some strategies.
The Minister for Finance, Sfiso, has said that government is open to working with the business sector. He said the business sector can come to his office anytime so that they can come together and find solutions. One of the things that was highlighted, we had the MD for one of the banks who said the banks are really trying to come up with tailor-made solutions for the small and medium enterprises. Yes, they usually say that access to finance is a big challenge, but she says they are a business too. You have to show them that you have the neck for the business. So they can't just give you money, they have to give you money that you will return. So another thing is that the World Bank now is working with the Ministry of Commerce, Industry and Trade. I saw that in the report for the ministry, the quarterly report, they are saying that they are working on a study that is called Be Ready, which is meant to find out really what the challenges are in the business community, especially the small and medium enterprises. Yeah. How are they going to be sorted out? What measures in terms of infrastructure and everything? And government, the Minister of Finance, in the procurement space is also introducing the financial management information system, which is meant to ensure that procurement really is done in a way that is transparent and that has integrity. Yeah. This will all play into ensuring that government remains credible.
Thank you, Nelly, for your contribution into this important conversation. We are still following the developments happening at the IFC, where challenges and opportunities are being discussed to unlock the growth potential of our private sector in Eswatini. Climate resilience has been proposed. There's also been the public-private sector partnership, which is very, very key. But most importantly, export competitiveness amidst geopolitical issues and the climate change advent. Let's go for another break. Sanele Sibiya joins us to speak about the tariff hike that has set the country abuzz. Live interview now. Sanele Sibiya joins us virtually to discuss Eswatini's business landscape, which is currently abuzz with concern. Discussions around the proposed tariff hike intensify every day. The implications of such a decision are far-reaching, especially for businesses as well as households already grappling with inflationary pressures. Now, the proposed increase aimed at sustaining service delivery and infrastructure investments has sparked some mixed reactions, certainly across the country, and we have been following this as Eswatini TV, particularly in the newsroom. Some argue that it's necessary for economic stability. Others still question its timing and its potential impact on economic recovery and competitiveness. Joining us to unpack this dynamics this morning, as well as to try and assess perhaps their implications, Sanele Sibiya, our economist, brings his valuable insights and to this development. What does it mean for the economy of Eswatini? Good afternoon to you, Sanele. Welcome to the program. There's a justification at play here. The proposed tariff hike has been framed as a necessity to sustain infrastructure investment and service delivery here in Eswatini. But from an economic standpoint, do you think that this rationale holds, and is it the best approach given the current economic climate? You may have been muted on your end. I cannot hear you on my end. But the biggest question is the justification around the proposed tariff hike. A lot of reactions around the country, certainly a lot of them leaning towards a resistance from a lot of the public. Do you see it being justified as to what the EEC is saying is going to, help the country, particularly in sustaining the infrastructure development of Eswatini? If your audio is not muted. Okay, I think while Sanele tries to sort that out on his end, we also do want to understand the economic impacts of the tariff hike. I think the biggest thing here, the increase affects Eswatini's business sector, particularly SMEs, which often operates on the thin margins. What could this mean for business as well in Eswatini? That is another conversation that we want to critically look into, as well as to put under the lens of a microscope, but also the timing. This is something that a lot of the many business people in Eswatini have questioned. Is this the right timing? Many stakeholders are raising concerns about the timing of the hike, given the ongoing post-pandemic recovery as well as the inflationary pressures. Is this the right moment for such a policy, or could it have been deterred or rather deferred for another time? Those are some of the, overarching questions as we grapple with this. Sanele is back. I hope we can hear you now, Sanele. The first question that I propose to you is the justification. Is this proposal justified?
Thank you, Mr. Ngumalo, and good afternoon to the viewer. I hope you can hear me right now.
I can hear
So
you.
when you look into the whole proposal and when you look into how power utilities work, they have to always find a way of, accounting for depreciation. So I think right now, what is causing a lot of the pushback is the fact that when you see the presentation of, say, profits on the side of the utility company, while now they're coming and asking for an increment. But when you look into the document presented to the Energy Regulatory Authority, you can see that there's a lot of depreciation and recovery costs to be made there. That's the first justification. So what you ask yourself is, do I wait for this current period, or do I wait going into next year, where you would find that if that equipment is not replaced, you might find yourself having power inefficiencies. You might find yourself coming into a situation of power cuts, load shedding, and all of those things. So that in itself has an implication for the economy, while at the same time we do and we understand that we are in a high cost of living pressure environment, even though we're seeing prices coming down and we are seeing that things are somehow stabilizing. Inflation is actually cooled down, but it doesn't change the fact that prices are still high and people's salaries have not changed that much. So that's what then has to be balanced here, Mr. Ngumalo. Yes, we do understand from the side of the utilities company that they do need this increment, and we have to hope that the regulator will somehow try to balance the needs of the population together with the needs of the utilities company, so that at least we maintain the efficiency, and at the same time we also maintain the cost of living pressures to a somewhat of a reasonable level. And you have to understand that Eswatini is not yet energy sufficient. So we do import a lot of our electricity, like over 80% from South Africa, and I think 12 or 10% from Mozambique, and then we produce domestically, I think, a smaller percentage. I think it's 8% produced domestically, 78% imported from South Africa, and the balance being imported from Mozambique. So we do pay for that, and even the utilities company does not have control over the pricing strategy and the contracts that are going to be signed by from sourcing. And part of the increment is actually required to continue with exploration and continue improving the local power grid, so that it contains issues around exploring geothermal power stations, finishing the Makuga power stations, a couple of power stations there, so that in the current period, yes, we have to take the strain, but I do believe that 3 or 4 years later down the line, once we've put all this together, you will start seeing a bit of stabilization in terms of the prices.
Requires us to have ample time to discuss, and I'm afraid, and I loathe to cut you short today, but we will, get into other facets of this important conversation that a lot of Eswatini want to listen to, but I'm afraid we have to end it here today. Thank you for joining us. That was Sanele Sbi, our economist, chiming into the proposed tariff hike that is concerning a lot of Eswatini businesses as well as households. Let's go for a quick bumper into our market analysis. Nozibusiso Dembe is already in studio to help us understand the indices of today. We get into our market analysis now. In the interest of time, we'll just get into it. We are seeing currency trends. Nozibusiso, fluctuations as we have been seeing during the week. Let's start with the currencies. The rand has shown some mixed, performances against major currencies like the dollar and the pound. What factors are driving this volatility?
Thank you, Spiso. Good afternoon to you and your viewers. I think it's been a mixed couple of days for the rand. Yeah. Last week we saw the rand get propelled quite a bit by the SARB decision to cut interest rates by 25 basis points. This was seen by the market as a small cut because the day before the announcement, there was an there was inflation data that was released, which came out much lower than expected, increasing the chances for a much bigger cut. So 25 basis points was seen as a small cut, and the market reacted quite positively to that. The SOB did indicate that this decision was driven by tough economic backdrop, but also by uncertain domestic outlook, even though the inflation numbers were below their target. So it's been quite an interesting week for the rand. And also the governor of the SOB indicated last week that this decision to cut by 25 basis points was unanimous, which means all the members of the MPC agreed to cut by 25 basis points. And then this week we saw the rand then suffer some losses after President-elect Donald Trump indicated that he would be imposing tariffs on Mexico, Canada, and China. Donald Trump gets into exactly. Donald Trump enters office on the 20th of January next year, and he already indicated that he'll be adding tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada, and also additional tariffs on China. So unfortunately for us, China is one of the biggest trade partners of South Africa, so they will be highly affected, which means the rand is also highly affected.
Eswatini is affected.
Exactly, but markets are volatile, so even now the rand is regaining some strength because of inflation numbers that are expected this afternoon from the US. So it's a bit of a yo-yo.
Certainly what we're expecting when Trump assumes office, and we know his political stance, particularly with China. You know.
Exactly.
Let's talk about commodities. What I'm seeing here, gold prices are rising, Brent crude is dipping. What are some of the implications on these shifts for Eswatini's economy?
So we've seen the price of gold. It's up, but it's up at a lower rate than it was before. The price of Brent crude has also been dipping quite a bit. So you can see on the screen, gold is currently trading at $2,648.29 per ounce, and Brent crude trading at $75.26 per barrel. And we've seen that price of Brent crude drop overnight, mainly driven by developments in the Middle East conflict. So Israel agreed to a 60-day ceasefire deal with Lebanon, which commenced today. So the expectation from the market is that there'll be a lower risk premium on oil coming out of the Middle East, which means then it drops that oil price. On the gold side, the reason for the drop is also related to the Middle East tensions. But what's interesting with gold is that even though the price of it, we've seen the increase slow, it's still 25% higher than it was at the beginning of the year. And the price in gold has been increasing primarily due to the US monetary policy stance.
Okay. Global indicators, particularly with equities, the S&P 500 and the FTSE 100, we're seeing the S&P 500 showing positive movement here, but the FTSE is dipping slightly. What do these trends indicate about, global investor sentiment, and, consequently, how would that affect us here locally?
So yes, you're right. We can definitely see that the FTSE is dipping by marginally though, and the reason for that is from Friday, the FTSE has been weakening after data showed that British business output in November had shrunk, and as a result of that, and this was for the first time in over a year, so as a result of that, you're seeing that slight dip. But with the S&P 500 and the JSE All Share Index, we're seeing positive performance there, indicating positive performance in companies in the US and in South Africa. And the US companies' performance is primarily due to the election of Donald Trump as a president. The US sees that as a factor that will boost the economy and the growth in the US economy. So we're seeing that in the numbers. Also, it might be interesting to also just add that the S&P 500 yesterday registered its 52nd record close for the year. So the performance is really good.
Yeah, really interesting numbers there. But I do want to ask, because we are entering the festive season, and surely there should be an impact then. Tomorrow is Black Friday, obviously. As we approach these seasons, or this season, how might increased consumer spending and trade activity further impact exchange rates and commodity prices?
So yeah, there definitely will be an impact. So if if consumers are spending more, businesses are making more, right? So automatically the performance of the businesses is better, which means you'll probably see, unfortunately markets are volatile, so you can never be sure, but you are likely to see an increase in those numbers for the JSE All Share Index, which is closer to home for us, but also just across all the other different countries. There should be a positive impact there.
Interesting season indeed. Thank you so much, Zibu, for your insights this afternoon. This has been Nozibusi Sotembe. She's the treasury dealer for Nedbank Eswatini, just making us understand the indices of the day as we continue to bring you the latest on the business landscape of Eswatini as well as the globe. Thank you for staying with us on the program. This has been the Wednesday edition, actually the last one for the month of November. So be sure to catch us again in December. Bye-bye.
Digital helps you make cross-border payments. Human gives you global specialists. Digital allows you to apply for a loan anytime, anywhere. Human connects you to credit experts. Digital puts you in control of your money, while human connects you to wealth advisors. Digital allows you to freeze, unfreeze, cancel, and reorder your card. Human gives you that personal touch. Digital when you want it. Human when you need it. Get the complete private banking experience with Nedbank Private Clients.
Make better money choices. Choose a bank that takes your money seriously. Business Watch was brought to you by Nedbank.